My beloved child, pause for a moment, because what you are about to hear was never meant to be rushed past with distracted eyes. It was meant to find you in a quiet space between one thought and the next, where imagination still has room to breathe. Do not leave before hearing this, because the story unfolding now is not a prediction, nor a hidden message about your future. It is a fictional vision told through the voice of heaven, crafted to remind your heart how deeply hope and longing can shape the human spirit. Somewhere in the vast landscape of this tale, beneath a sky painted with stars that seem close enough to touch, someone spent the entire night speaking your name, not as certainty, but as possibility. Before dawn arrived, a conversation began that would leave every soul in that room profoundly changed. But what was truly spoken cannot be understood until you first see everything that led to that single unforgettable night. I watched you wander through seasons that seemed ordinary to everyone else but felt immeasurably vast from within. There were mornings when sunlight reached your window, yet something inside you remained hidden in shadow. There were evenings filled with familiar voices while your deepest questions sat quietly beside you, unnoticed. You carried invisible chapters no one else could read. Every disappointment became another page folded into the book of your heart. Every unexpected kindness became a bookmark reminding you not to abandon hope completely. Even when you smiled, there were silent places inside you waiting for someone to understand without needing every wound explained. That waiting became part of your story, not because it defined you, but because it taught your heart to recognize sincerity whenever it finally appeared, far beyond the horizon of your awareness, within this imagined world where memories shimmer like lanterns across endless valleys. Another soul walked beneath the same moon. They too had become fluent in quiet longing. They laughed when laughter was needed, offered strength when others leaned upon them, and carried unanswered questions home like delicate glass that could not be placed into careless hands. They often looked toward the night sky, not searching for signs, but searching for stillness. They believed that if they became quiet enough, perhaps they would finally hear the truth hidden beneath the noise of expectation. They did not know that another story was unfolding alongside theirs, separated not merely by distance but by timing, perspective, and countless ordinary choices that seemed insignificant while they were happening. Listen closely, beloved child, because this is where the night begins to change. There came an evening unlike any other, though nothing about it appeared extraordinary from the outside. The wind brushed softly against the windows. Lamps glowed with familiar warmth. The scent of tea drifted through quiet rooms where generations had gathered countless times before. Family photographs reflected soft light from polished frames, each image holding echoes of laughter, celebration, and lessons learned through years no calendar could fully contain. It was into this peaceful setting that your name, known only within this symbolic story, entered the conversation for the very first time. No one announced it dramatically. No music swelled. No voice declared that history was being made. Instead, there was a thoughtful pause, the kind that often arrives before someone reveals something they have carried privately for far longer than anyone realizes. The one who had been quietly thinking about you all this time looked around the room, studying familiar faces with unexpected hesitation. Their heart beat a little faster. Not from fear alone, but from the weight of speaking honestly about feelings that had remained carefully protected. They wondered whether anyone would understand. They wondered whether hope sounded foolish once spoken aloud. Yet silence had grown heavier than vulnerability, and eventually they chose to speak. "I need to tell you about someone." Those simple words settled into the room with remarkable gentleness. They were neither loud nor dramatic, yet they carried the unmistakable feeling that something important had just begun. Every family member lifted their eyes. Some smiled with quiet curiosity. Others exchanged brief glances, sensing there was more beneath the surface than those few words revealed. Even the oldest among them, whose life had been shaped by decades of joy and sorrow alike, leaned forward almost imperceptibly. There are conversations that pass like clouds, forgotten by morning. Then there are conversations that seem to pause time itself. This became the second kind, but before they spoke another word, something unexpected happened within the symbolic halls of heaven imagined by this story. I walked through a vast sanctuary where every ceiling shimmered like rivers of living light. Countless luminous threads stretched across the air, each representing moments of courage that human hearts almost dismissed as too small to matter. Most glowed softly. Some blazed brilliantly. Then one delicate thread brightened with astonishing intensity. It was connected not to a triumph celebrated by crowds, but to a simple decision made quietly within a single heart, the decision to speak honestly instead of hiding behind comfort. Even among the endless brilliance surrounding it, that thread became impossible to ignore. Do not overlook this, because honesty often appears fragile before it reveals its true strength. The soul who spoke your name had rehearsed this conversation many times alone. They imagined every possible response. They anticipated doubt, concern, laughter, encouragement, silence. They built entire futures from questions that had never actually been asked. Yet imagination can never fully prepare the heart for the vulnerability of reality. As they sat surrounded by familiar faces, memories surfaced unexpectedly. They remembered the first time they noticed something different about you. Not perfection. Not spectacle. Something quieter. A way of listening. A way of remaining gentle when circumstances encouraged hardness. A way of carrying your own burdens without demanding that everyone else carry them too. Those memories became impossible to keep hidden. "I don't know how to explain it," they admitted softly within this fictional tale, "but something about them stayed with me." The room grew still, not because everyone instantly agreed, and not because every uncertainty disappeared, but because sincerity possesses its own unmistakable presence. It asks to be heard before it asks to be judged. The oldest member of the family lowered their eyes for a thoughtful moment, as though searching through decades of experience for words worthy of the moment. Another smiled gently, recognizing emotions that required no explanation because they had once lived through similar nights themselves. Someone else quietly wondered whether hope might be arriving disguised as hesitation. Meanwhile, beloved child, you knew nothing of this imagined conversation. You were living another evening entirely, occupied by ordinary concerns that seemed far removed from such profound moments. Perhaps you were gazing through a rain-streaked window, perhaps reading beneath a quiet lamp, perhaps walking beneath a sky where stars hid behind drifting clouds. Whatever the scene, it appeared uneventful. Yet this fictional story invites you to imagine how lives sometimes become mysteriously intertwined through moments no participant fully understands while they unfold. You believed the night belonged only to routine. Elsewhere, someone was carefully describing the qualities they admired in you without knowing how deeply those words would resonate. The conversation slowly deepened. At first they spoke of simple things. Your kindness. Your patience. The way you seemed to notice people who often felt invisible. None of these descriptions sounded extraordinary standing alone. Yet together they formed a portrait far more meaningful than grand accomplishments ever could. Every remembered detail revealed less about who you appeared to be and more about how you made others feel in your presence. That distinction changed everything. There is a remarkable difference between impressing someone and helping them feel understood. The family began sensing that this story belonged to the second kind. One voice finally broke the silence. What happened that made you trust your heart this much? The question lingered like candlelight across still water. The one who loved you closed their eyes briefly before answering. They spoke not about dramatic declarations or impossible coincidences. Instead, they described quiet moments almost anyone else would have forgotten. A conversation that left them feeling unexpectedly peaceful. A gesture offered without expectation of recognition. A glimpse of authenticity that remained long after louder memories had faded. They confessed that while many people tried to be unforgettable, you seemed content simply being genuine. Somehow, that sincerity had lingered longer than excitement ever could. As those words filled the room, another unexpected layer unfolded within heaven's symbolic sanctuary. The glowing thread now intertwined with countless others, revealing that every sincere connection in this fictional universe resembled woven light rather than isolated brilliance. I watched patterns emerge that no single heart could have created alone. Threads crossed valleys of misunderstanding, rivers of fear, mountains of hesitation. None erased difficulty. Instead, they revealed how compassion quietly survives despite it. Even I paused before that growing tapestry, not because its ending was fixed, but because its beauty rested entirely upon freely chosen moments of courage. Then came the first difficult question. But the way you speak about them tells me more than any introduction ever could. No one expected those words. The one who loved you lowered their gaze, overcome not by triumph but by gratitude. They realized something profound. Being understood begins long before every detail is known. Sometimes another heart recognizes authenticity through the way it transforms the person describing it. In that realization, tears quietly gathered, not tears of certainty, not tears of arrival, but tears born from the astonishing relief of no longer carrying hope entirely alone. Yet the conversation was only beginning, because just when everyone believed the deepest emotions had already surfaced, the oldest voice in the room slowly stood. Every movement carried the gentle dignity of someone who had witnessed countless beginnings and endings. Their hands rested upon the back of a nearby chair as they looked toward the rain-covered window before speaking. The room instinctively grew quieter. Stories accumulated across long lives often reveal truths younger hearts overlook. Even I, within this symbolic vision, watched with profound attention, for what they were about to share had remained hidden for many years. They did not begin by speaking about you. Instead, they began telling a story from decades earlier, a story almost forgotten, a story about another rainy night, another conversation. Another family gathered around another table. As memory slowly unfolded, expressions around the room changed one by one. Curiosity became recognition. Recognition became emotion. Emotion became silence so complete that even the rain seemed softer beyond the glass. The one who loved you listened without interruption, sensing that every word carried meaning reaching far beyond nostalgia. The elder finally turned back toward them. Their eyes glistened with memories too deep for ordinary language. Then they quietly said, "There is something about the way you describe this person that reminds me of someone I once almost lost because fear spoke louder than love." Every heartbeat in the room seemed to pause. The firelight flickered gently. The rain continued its patient song. No one moved. No one breathed quite the same. And just as the elder reached into an old wooden box resting upon a nearby shelf, a box untouched for years, holding one forgotten letter that had never been read aloud, the room filled with a silence so profound that even heaven's luminous halls seemed to lean closer, waiting for the words about to emerge. And that is where this part of the story must end.